7:19 a.m. Items being thrown on the left side of the vehicle, the driver's side of the vehicle, at the back door as well, where I'm located inside of the car. 7:19 at FERN and G. While I'm also documenting the airplanes flying over. It's December 15th, 2019. I'm outside in the vehicle at FERN and G. It's 10:54 a.m. on December 15, 2019. That is an example of nonverbal communication as it exists outside where I remain inside of a vehicle, in addition to their use of making noise on any object. But when you're outdoors, it's typically the car door closing, their car alarms, their car horns, etc. I am using my device right now. They are actively listening to that. The planes are flying over. I just want to go ahead and document that aspect, the use of the car alarms, which is also another form of harassment that has been exercised. And that is in line with my definition of the tool at their disposal with regard to this system and the nonverbal communication. In this particular instance, it is a means of monitoring. It is a means of nonverbal communication as I am in operation of my communication device inside of this car. It's 10:55 a.m. It's 10:58 a.m. Two consecutive airplanes flying directly over this vehicle. Immediately following my verbal documentation of use of nonverbal communication with the third party's car alarms. They fly west. They are flying west over FERN directly above this vehicle, and that is 10:57, 10:58, immediately following my documentation, two consecutive planes. It is 11:34 a.m., and I remain inside the vehicle at FERN and G, and I am just perusing my communication device, and it is the same P.O.C. And so what I want to document is as I use my communication device, as I press and hold an item on the screen, as I flip between different screens, there are items dropped on the car, or as I documented earlier, the use of a car alarm. Those are just examples of the ways in which they engage in nonverbal communication. This is pursuant to the ongoing monitoring. Everything that I do, and with regard to the ways that they communicate my activity, which is based on their ongoing search for electronic information, my communication devices, and keeping themselves apprised of my every single move. It is a very fixed system, and this is what I mean by with regard to the targeted individual, that while they are surrounding the targeted individual and honed in on the very breathing pattern that the targeted individual has, while they engage in conduct like facing the window and staring at a laptop, or acting as though they're concentrating on some conversation or making or preparing a drink inside of a Starbucks cafe. While they, on the surface, pay no attention to the targeted individual, they are in every way focused on the targeted individual. What I am documenting right now, and the significance of that, is with regard to analogizing that nonverbal conduct, that use also of harassment. It is pursuant to the ongoing monitoring, has a criminal multi-purpose. Where I am inside of the car, the dropping of items on the car, it does shadow my activity on my communication device. So as I'm going through, perusing through my phone, and again, as I stated, as I select different items, as I go through different screens and whatnot, this is what is recognized as a pattern based on my activity And so I have recognized the same tool, nonverbal communication pursuant to the ongoing monitoring, is a tool in the state organized system of stalking and harassment, and it has been recognized in different manners. In West Valley Jail, it was the use of toilet flushing. It was the same thing in Glen Helen. That also served a means of harassment, but it is the same tool taken in different forms. So this is just the way that it takes form inside of a vehicle when the targeted individual lives inside of a car located at FERN and G. It's 11:37 a.m. It's December 15, 2019. It's 11:42 a.m. and I am just documenting the state's P.O.C. with regard to invasion of privacy and the attempt to duplicate and or contradict that which they listen to me document. I am noting active attempts to manipulate my phone, and this is the same conduct engaged in on the very phone I'm using right now, but as well as my second Android. This is combined with turning on and turning off my phone. As soon as I turned it back on, so I powered it off, and as soon as I powered it back on, a third party parks in front of me. Again, this is active invasion of privacy that is occurring, so they are listening to me engage in action in real time. So as I power my phone back on, again, the vehicle in front of me remains running. You hear the closing of the car door while it remains running and idle in front of me. That's relevant positioning, first of all. And in addition to that, the timing is not coincidental. It is with regard to my change in activity, powering off my communication device. And so they get in relevant positioning, closing of the door, which is to suggest they're not focused on me. They're engaged in some other conversation, which is within earshot on the right side while I'm sitting in the car. You hear a third party speaking, and then they combine that with that which they listened to me document earlier, the sound of the car alarm, and in addition to their coinciding attempts to manipulate my cell phone that I was turning on and off. This is all demonstrative of the same entity that I'm documenting, and in addition to that, the ongoing invasion of privacy. Very well apprised and paying very close attention to my activities on my communication devices, actively exerting efforts to try to manipulate my devices, steal the information. Basically, this is main focus in the state organized system of stalking and harassment. In addition to that, what I have thoroughly addressed prior to that, but this is just another example of it, the duplication of the use of, for example, what I've identified verbally. So when I identify it verbally, they've heard me say it, they've heard me identify it as P.O.C., and so then they try to duplicate it when it is not factually as I've recognized, as I've identified it. It is not P.O.C. when they just try to duplicate it at some other random point. It has a specific pattern. So with regard to that, that is demonstrative of the ongoing invasion of privacy. And with the real-time reaction is after I document it, then they engage in repeating it over and over and over again. It is much like Starbucks. As I identify their use of clamor, the patrons engaging in slamming around the furniture, kicking the table, pounding on the tables that I'm working on, dragging the furniture on the chairs, which is not necessary, and getting up and sitting down. It is a deliberate effort to engage in nonverbal communication in addition to harassment. And with regard to the third-party employees who are creating excessive clamor in their presentation of their preparing coffee drinks. And so in my identification of it as what it is, nonverbal communication, they engage in duplicating it by just creating excessive more and more clamor. So it is analogous to that same P.O.C. What I am documenting now, though, the significance of it is the simultaneous conduct, the effort to try to duplicate what I've identified this morning as nonverbal communication, the positioning that coincided with my change in activity, that is P.O.C. with regard to the search for electronic information. As soon as I powered my phone off and back on, the vehicle in front of me placed itself right in front of this vehicle. That is relevant positioning. That's getting up close and personal so they can find out what I'm doing. In addition to that, it is evidenced by the P.O.C that the state engages in with trying to manipulate my communication devices. So that's what occurred. It's 11:47 a.m., December 15, 2019. The image I just took at 11:50 is an image of the vehicle that engaged in the relevant positioning at the moment I had engaged in change in activity on my communication device. And that is the sound of that vehicle driving off. By the way, that is P.O.C. All the elements are present, and that was also added in addition to the efforts to try to manipulate my phone, which I was able to capture images of also at the same time. So these are not coincidences. This is P.O.C. and it's relevant to the surveillance aspect. This is where I remain. And it is the same system that is in place where I capture P.O.C. with regard to third parties, as in when the targeted individual is surrounded in public. It's 11:50 a.m. It's 12:22 p.m. And I remain inside the car at FERN and G. And so what's notable is the documented use of nonverbal communication and the different ways that you can easily engage in basically making any noise to communicate with regard to the targeted individual's movement activity, especially on a communication device, which is what I am subject to inside of this car. In addition to that is the state's invasion of privacy. It's very central to that. They are necessarily invading my privacy in order to engage in such monitoring. So it is like having a gnat bugging the heck out of you at a barbecue. It is all in your face. It's all over, listening to you, touching you. This is state molestation, as I have stated before. So while I'm inside of the car, the state, and that is directly and indirectly, throwing items at the car, which is shadowing my activity on communication devices. Again, the activity, the conduct is analogous to what the third parties inside of Starbucks, for example, engage in with the flashing conduct. Not only are they cowards in that more often than not, they are not facing you. They place their communication device in a location where the flashing of light, which you have verbally documented and identified as P.O.C., they engage in that, and that is the harassment aspect. They engage in it to where you can see it, but then they are not facing you, or they're acting as though they're focused on something else, and that is pursuant to third-party conduct and the effort to evade being documented as engaging in P.O.C. With regard to the dropping of items and throwing items at this car, which does shadow my activity on my communication device, it is also another means of harassment, as they engage in that same conduct when I'm merely sleeping in the car, which again is discernible based on breathing patterns and eye movement. So the state is closely listening and monitoring at all times, and much of my allegations, much of my documentation reflects that which would require them to be invading privacy in order to continue to engage in what is this. This is a system of stalking, harassment, surveillance, and monitoring. And it is not a coincidence that the car alarm is incessantly blowing in the background. I've specifically documented that conduct today. There is no coincidence. The state continues over and over again to confirm that which I have steadily identified as invasion of privacy and expansive invasion of privacy. And this is an exaggerated use of the car alarms that I identified earlier today as P.O.C. with regard to nonverbal communication. You can compare that to the harassment that I suffered at Starbucks with regard to the bathroom and the third-party employee who knocked on the door, tried to open the door, and ran off. And then that was immediately followed the next day. Within 3 minutes, 2 patrons engaging in the same identical conduct. That is an exaggerated form of that which they listen to me document. It is the same P.O.C. over and over and over again, even when it is absolutely implausible and ridiculous. But this is the entity, and these are the patterns that are in place. It's 12:26 p.m. And what I wanted to focus on is the fact that, number one, the state's unsuccessful and futile efforts to try to duplicate and or contradict does not negate the fact that the patterns exist. The pattern of conduct is pursuant to the targeted individual's activity, and with regard to movement and a change thereof, and the nonverbal communication is pursuant to the necessary invasion of privacy. So they are closely listening to what I am engaged in. And so with regard to the throwing and dropping of items on the vehicle, it is analogous to flashing with the communication devices. So it is something that the targeted individual must keep scrupulous record of with regard to its occurrence and identification with the pattern that exists in those occurrences. And that is what I am doing, because I'm dealing with someone that is also not only engaged in tortious criminal conduct, but actively seeking to evade being documented. And because they have the advantage, I put that in quotes because it's really sick and despicable and criminal. It's not really an advantage. But with regard to gang stalking and that which is organized by a government, they have the ability to sit up and listen to the targeted individual's efforts to document their conduct. So that is very relevant with regard to the P.O.C. itself. Okay, it's 12:27 p.m. And again, I can only continue to just point out how the state is using the sounding of the car alarm and as actually engaging in dropping and throwing items at the car right now, which is it's not a result of any rain. It is certainly not a result of falling from the tree. And it certainly is not a result of, it cannot be, especially when it's occurring at the passenger side windows, that's the result of throwing items directly at the car, which is horizontal to the falling items that would be from a tree. And so what I'm documenting is a very let me see, desperate effort, I would say, desperate effort as they seek to listen to every word that I say and try to I think I would describe it as make something disputable with regard to the facts as they exist, but there are certain things that are inescapable with regard specifically to nature, and that's just one example. But anyway, it's 12:28 p.m. and as the state is engaging in dropping items on the car right now, as I speak about the conduct, that is just with regard to the consistent behavioral pattern that is in line with the same entity that I'm documenting. So while they seek to evade it, while they are engaged in P.O.C., that's the actual P.O.C. They're also, the other aspect of their P.O.C. is seeking to try to duplicate and contradict what I am identifying as P.O.C. So this is why they are seeking to conspicuously throw items at a rate where it could be audibly heard, and that's how you know it's not falling from a tree. It's not going to make that loud of a sound. This is things that are a matter of common sense, and so I think, again, I want to identify P.O.C. I have identified P.O.C. and I think it's also very, very relevant to capture the fact that the state is engaged in, and it necessarily is, in order to engage in the criminal conduct that it's engaged in, because you have to be listening very closely, you have to be watching, you have to be involved in expansive invasion of privacy, and this is an unprecedented level of invasion of privacy in violation of the targeted individual with regard to the state organized system of stalking and harassment. And the main focus with pursuant to the stalking and harassment is the ceaseless search of electronic information and communication device, and that requires third parties acting in concert with the state, invading the privacy of the targeted individual, and engaging in the same surveillance and stalking conduct. All of this is a matter of my documentation, independent corroborating evidence that is in existence pursuant to that. And what I am also capturing, basically, what the state provides me with in its continuing despicable acts, and that which does not contradict my evidence, it merely confirms the nature and the essence of not only the conduct but the entity itself. And it's 12:30 p.m. and is the significance of what I'm documenting, because that is a pattern in and of itself. And so where the state is not able to stop me from documenting it, not able to stop me from proceeding with my case against it, not able to stop me from exposing its unprecedented levels of criminality, it actually acts to confirm and substantiate my very case by continuing to try to contradict, which it cannot. You cannot obviate the facts as they exist. All that they can do is continue to engage in that which is incriminating upon them. The airplanes continue to follow me. That in no way suggests that they are not engaged in stalking. It confirms that they are engaged in stalking. And it also confirms that they are trying to duplicate and or contradict that which I identify as a pattern of conduct. But by engaging in the same criminal conduct, it in no way contradicts it. And this is what I am saying. This is an entity that is sick. These are government actors engaged in such conduct, and so I will continue to document it, and I will continue to document in every facet of the case that it exists. And in this particular instance, we're talking about being inside of the car and them engaging in nonverbal conduct, which is an element in the state organized system of harassment and stalking and monitoring. And with regard to, it is also instrumental to the ongoing harassment. So the other aspect of it, which is tangential, but it is very relevant with regard to the malice that exists and the willfulness, is the ongoing effort to try to duplicate and or contradict, which they can't. But it does reveal the invasion of privacy. It does reveal the active exerted effort to try to obviate liability in the criminal conduct. So it's 12:32 p.m. and the state is continuing to fly over, continuing to engage in surveillance and monitoring through third parties who plant themselves just like they plant themselves around the target individual inside of Starbucks and inside of the grocery store. And as the target individual walks on the sidewalk and walks on through the parking lots, at every turn, the targeted individual is surrounded through the aircrafts above, law enforcement that is creeping around every corner, that makes itself even more present through the use of sirens, and in addition to the third parties that surface out of black crevices everywhere at the moment that the target individual engages in documentation. And that in of itself is showing how 12:36 p.m. Just want to document. This is a part of the same passive-aggressive hostility, the cowardice, but nonetheless criminal and tortious conduct, throwing items at a high velocity in order for it to make such a loud, clamorous noise on the exterior of this vehicle at the rear windshield. This is a result of what the state is listening to me document about it. It is not falling from a tree. It is not raining. And no amount of rain, irrespective of past instances, futile instances to try to suggest it as so, by the mere occurrence of it and continuation of it. That's just like continuing to make noise and clamor in order to suggest that it's not a part of a pattern. It does not negate the pattern. Anyway, so just want to document that 12:37, items being thrown at the rear windshield. And this is the manner that the targeted individual must document it, because much like the flashing conduct that the cowards and criminals engage in out in public, they are acting as though they are not engaged in it, turning their backs, running out of the cafe, putting their phone away while they're standing behind the bar preparing drinks, holding it up in the air and putting it back in their pocket. They're engaged in all sorts of weird chicanery, but it is relevant with regard to the documentation of the P.O.C. And so with regard to the throwing of items on the car, just want to note that within less than 90 seconds later, which is pursuant to the same personality. It's a personality that I've become acquainted with in my studying it, and being able to actually come up with a whole system whereby this corrupt system of state stalking and harassment can be identified and can be criminalized in a court of law. So it's 12:36, and that was the throwing of an item directly, and that's directed at the targeted individual who is challenging the state. So just want to note that. It's 12:39 p.m. The images that I took at 12:38 p.m. are denoting the state's ongoing monitoring of my use of my communication devices. I picked up a different phone, and I am documenting how they are engaged in trying to manipulate my phone. So I captured images of that. That's the significance of that, and the significance of that, which I have captured on numerous amount of other times on other devices. And so this is a state that is engaged in listening very closely, like I've said, and like these images suggest and demonstrate. That was the moment I picked my phone up and pressed a button, picked up a different phone and started operating it, and these efforts to try to manipulate my phone, that's the significance of what I've documented. The coinciding occurrence with my operation of the device. This is pursuant to the invasion of privacy. This is pursuant to the ongoing search for electronic information and communication device. It's December 15, 2019 at 12:39 p.m. and I remain inside of the car at FERN and G. And this is moments after I have engaged in documentation on my other phone. It's just the same P.O.C. That was the sound of sirens going around the perimeter of my location inside of this car. Again, pursuant to the ongoing monitoring, that is not only a means of their search for electronic information, it is also a means of harassment. With their knowledge, listening to me type on the computer, in addition to the incessant closing of car doors to that same end, they listen to me document P.O.C. and they just try to duplicate it for purposes of actually engaging in P.O.C., but also as a means to distract me when I am working on my case that they're listening to me work on. And it's noticeable, based on their invasion of privacy, I am typing on my laptop. After I spent the morning documenting their P.O.C. as I remain inside of this car with regard to the ongoing surveillance. It's 1:12 p.m. The sirens were at 1:10 a.m. Oh, and there go the sirens again. So notice that they stopped, I spoke about them, and they started up again. That is the same MO with regard to every element that I point out verbally for them to listen to, and they just duplicate it. The extensive fact pattern that exists demonstrates there is an absence of coincidence. It is impossible that one person can experience everything that I have at the hands of the state, that is law enforcement, that is at the hands of third parties working as an agent through law enforcement through the state, being followed by aircraft for about a year now. There is an absence of coincidence, and so what I am documenting with regard to their engaging in duplicating that which I verbally document because they are expansively invading my privacy, again, that is a mere substantiation of my allegations. There are no coincidences in this case. There is far too much evidence against the state in order to hold that position. It just does not exist. It doesn't, and it's ridiculous, but this is what the state is doing, and that's because it has no defense, and it is actively stalling on the case against itself, and that speaks to the court's inaction, and it is December 15, 2019. It's 1:14 p.m. Irrespective of the unsuccessful attempt to try to duplicate that which I identify as P.O.C., it is still nonetheless P.O.C. because it is pursuant to the ongoing harassment. So regardless of that which they try to duplicate, which you cannot duplicate, P.O.C. has a specific definition, it has a specific identification within the elements at play with regard to the ongoing state stalking and harassment and monitoring. Each time that they do that unsuccessfully, they are showing that they are invading privacy and they are engaged in P.O.C. by virtue of the harassment aspect. So, like I said, it's 1:14 p.m. It's December 15, 2019. It should also be noted it's 1:17 p.m. With regard to the elements, to the ceaseless search for electronic information in a communication device, the means by which it's technology. So you have the light, air, relevant positioning, and the communication devices themselves. And all elements remain present while I am inside of this vehicle at FERN G. The sound of sirens, it is also relevant to note that that is nonverbal communication as well, as I've already identified. And so it is something that does serve more than one purpose. The same overall criminal purpose, but it does serve more than one purpose. And pursuant to that, the vehicles, as I've already documented, as I sit in this vehicle at FERN G, the third parties are engaging in P.O.C. by virtue of their driving past. And the fact that they do so, whether they are sitting in their cars, whether they're walking past either, or riding on a bike, or driving past on this street, driving north or south on FERN, or driving east and west on G Street at the intersection, straight ahead of this car. This car is not far from the corner. That is P.O.C. That is relevant positioning. That's crossing paths at both streets. When they come in park, that's engaged in positioning. Whether they are walking or riding a bike or on a skateboard, that is crossing paths. And basically being out in public where the targeted individual is surrounded by third parties engaging in the P.O.C., that is tantamount to patrolling. So, and again, the state is independently capable of engaging in that. So by virtue of their surrounding the perimeter, which they typically do through the use of sirens, which also serves the purpose of nonverbal communication. But typically, what is MO with their sirens? Everyone, all the traffic gets out of the way. The state vehicle engages in speeding in order to get to whatever destination. The destination is the perimeter of the location of the targeted individual. You have more than one element at play where they are able to independently engage in that search for electronic information. But even so, every third party surrounding the targeted individual is able to engage in that unlawful search. So that is relevant as well, which is what I want to point out. Again, it is not reliant on the airplanes flying over, me hearing them or seeing them either. The airplanes are specifically relevant with regard to the extreme and outrageous conduct, the extent to which the relentless and desperate and criminal efforts that the state will go to in order to continue to engage in this unlawful state-organized system of stalking and harassment, and a specific intent to create fear, cause the targeted individual to fear. This is also with regard to the malice and willfulness in the very design of the system, because the targeted individual who would ordinarily not have evidence or the tools to be able to prove that they're being stalked by the state via aircraft is an incredible story in and of itself. It is designed to make the target individual appear as though they do not have all their screws. And that is not funny. That is a part of the malice in the very design of the system. So that is a deliberate aspect of, and that is what the airplanes represent, in addition to the fact that they are highly disturbed individuals and acting on an unprecedented level of criminality and engaging in that which defies common sense that any normal human being would engage in. Why would you focus on a citizen? For what purpose? For no legitimate purpose. There is an expenditure of resources and money that they are wasting and engaging in such criminal conduct. There is a whole litany of reasons why it defies common sense. It defies the human ability, a normal person, to be able to reconcile what the state is engaged in and the amounts of resources that they waste in order to continue to do so, and the criminal efforts, the criminal motivation and ambitions behind what they're doing. So that's what the airplanes represent, but the airplanes are also acting in concert, and P.O.C. is also with regard to the use of headlights, third parties engaging in concert with the presence of the airplanes. But again, the P.O.C., third parties were engaged in stealing the targeted individual's electronic information in her phone prior to the arrival in December of 2018 of the airplanes. So it is not dependent on the airplanes. The presence of the airplanes is pursuant to the ongoing state-organized system of stalking and harassment, and it is also instrumental in the ceaseless search for electronic information. But I want to note that I started off with documenting the relevance of the sirens. And it like every other element, has a multi-purpose. And with regard to the third parties that continue to drive by and pass by the targeted individual, this is a state-organized system that is in play. The P.O.C. is perfectly capable of occurring wherever the targeted individual is, including in the vehicle that she remains in at the intersection, outdoors at FERN and G. It's December 15th. It's 1:22 p.m. Okay, it's 1:29 p.m. and simultaneous to my operating my communication device, this is just P.O.C. repeating over and over again. Third party drives north directly past this car, approaching the intersection of FERN and G, which is straight in front. Whether there is a third party that is actually planted, which is probably the case, my windows are covered up, which also speaks to the directing of sunlight into this car as they pass by. But my windows are covered up, and so third parties engage in surreptitiously standing around and walking by, and then and they do so in coinciding to my simultaneous to my activity, my movement. So with regard to the search of information in a communication device, the instantaneous, simultaneous action is an aspect of that P.O.C. So this speaks to what I've captured in photographs as well. As I use my communication device, a third party appears out of nowhere in relevant positioning, though. That is what is legally relevant. That is P.O.C. On all the elements are present. This speaks to the ongoing search. This speaks to the stalking and harassment and surveillance. This speaks to their ongoing knowledge of the movement and activity of the targeted individual. And again, all of these facts exist in addition to the fact that law enforcement is engaged in stalking and harassment, and their P.O.C. is being within the same or similar location and in close proximity to the location of the target individual In addition to the fact that the airplanes have a P.O.C. since December of 2018 of being in and remaining in the same location, same close proximity location of the targeted individual. Okay, so this is with regard to stalking, harassment, surveillance, and the search for communication for electronic information and communication device. That search is occurring at a ceaseless rate, including where I remain inside of this car. Each and every third party passing by the targeted individual, this is a system, it is not individualized. They are engaged in relevant positioning, all of the elements are present, and the system is ongoing at every place that the targeted individual goes. And so that's what I am demonstrating, and that is the system that is at work with regard to the stalking, the surveillance, the following, and the search for the unlawful search for electronic information in a communication device. And those are the main, that's the focus of the corrupt system that I'm documenting. Each and every one that passes by, and the inconsistent conduct, which is also inconsistent inside of Starbucks. It is also inconsistent inside of this car, where they are engaged in substantially similar behavior, and the sun is not moving at a rapid rate within 90 seconds. However, one vehicle driving by results in direction of light into the car, whereas another one does not, where they're driving in the same direction, where this vehicle has not moved at all. Okay, so what I am saying is that I am demonstrating not only the fact that there is a system that is in place, but number two, that the state is engaged in listening to me and trying to do, that in no way contradicts what I'm documenting. It is substantiating what I am claiming with regard to a corrupt and disturbed entity that is involved in trying to duplicate and or contradict what I am documenting as their criminal conduct, and what is the plight of the targeted individual, and being constantly surrounded and constantly subject to an unfathomable level of violation, listening to everything that the target individual says, watching everywhere that they go, following them everywhere that they go, and ceaselessly searching their personal information that resides in their communication devices. It's a level of violation that ordinarily a targeted individual has no idea is occurring. In addition to that, the identification of of the state's conduct is shown by the inconsistency. They are not God. They cannot duplicate the acts of God, yet they have unsuccessfully and to their own detriment tried to do so. And all I am doing is identifying the ways that it is inconsistent with nature, and it defies common sense and a basic knowledge of science, the way that things fall, the way that things happen in nature. That is all that I am doing, while the state is sitting around listening, but notably also and and legally relevant, continuing to engage in the P.O.C. So as I sit in the car at FERN and G, what I am showing, what I am documenting, the significance of this is the fact that the system is at play at every place and at all times. And the level to which I am personally experiencing it is based on my knowledge and my documenting it as such. The throwing of items at the car, that's an act of aggression. Even the arrival of the airplanes, that's an act of aggression. The theft of my vehicle pursuant to the ongoing stalking and harassment by law enforcement, which was, you can look at the timeline and look at their actions, which was ratcheted up aggression based on what I was engaged in, and i.e. what I was engaged in was filing my ex parte application for shortening of time for my petition for relief from the claims presentation requirement. All of this is very relevant to what I'm documenting. I am being met with an unprecedented level of aggression and hostility because of my knowledge of this system and my documentation and my challenging it in court. An ordinary targeted individual is not going to, will, number one, have no knowledge of what's going on, because by virtue of what I'm documenting, they exist in everyday life, light, air. I mean, who's going to look at the ordinary act of turning on the air conditioning or opening up the door as you're walking in a cafe as being suspect? You're not going to, unless you are able to identify based on a history of conduct that has made a pattern more pronounced, and you're able to identify that which is actually elemental in an ongoing corrupt and criminal system that is violating a targeted individual. Unless you have that sort of insight and knowledge and ongoing ability to study what you're experiencing, such that to the degree you're able to create a whole nomenclature for it, because there is such a pronounced pattern, which is what the case is here, then you're not going to experience this level of aggression and hostility. And this speaks to what I am experiencing. It is unique in that regard. But the state's criminal conduct is, I'm sure I am not the only person that is experiencing this, and I'm sure it probably has never been exposed at this level. And the people who are being violated, targeted individuals, have no clue that they are being subject to such violation. And the system is very much designed by virtue of, for example, airplanes surfacing, flying above you at a public park. That's an incredible story. Incredible. And without the tools and the ability to litigate against it, it's designed to make the target individual appear to be crazy. So that just speaks to the malice and willfulness. It's 1:36 p.m. and again, it's something that it's asinine for the state and detrimental to its own legal interests, but I sit here and I document, and then I document the state's efforts to invade my privacy and try to duplicate or contradict, which they cannot. It's a long-standing pattern that exists. That is even more substantiated by the presence of stalking aircraft and stalking law enforcement officers. Anyway, it's 1:37 p.m. I'm at FERN and G Street. So that is an airplane sounding like they're dropping bombs. Um, Now, why? First of all, if there is, it's patently ridiculous because the planes have been following me since December 19, 2018. But presumably they are coming from Ontario Airport. I don't know where else they would be coming from, engaging in flying lower to the ground at this intersection and then flying higher once they pass over this intersection, which is the same targeted conduct that occurred over at Vine and G Street when I was remaining at that intersection, which is the same conduct that they engaged in on 18th Street in Newport and Costa Mesa. They were not engaged in the loud roaring of their engines on Pomona and Temple. They were engaged in the blinking airplanes flying at a distance above in a straight line in succession, just repeatedly day and night. That's what they were doing. Upon the evolution, if you want to call it, of the relationship between the airplanes and myself, my questioning their identity, their continuing communication with me through that time, and my clear identification of them as an enemy who was engaged in criminal conduct, their behavior has adjusted to my identification of them as stalkers, as an added element to that which I identified on the part of third parties and law enforcement. And that's when the aggressive roaring of the engines and flying directly over with helicopters and circling around above and following by helicopters and theft of my car, that's when all of this stuff. So anyway, with regard to the dropping, I mean, that sounds like they're dropping bombs, like we're in Vietnam or something. And they are flying over Fern and G Street, a residential area, and they do so repetitiously. And they're doing so right now because it's the only means by which they think that they can try to distract me from working on my case on my laptop, which they're actively listening to me do. Anyway, I do think that that is relevant because you're talking about that sound coming from an airplane flying over a residential area, number one. And number two, I mean, presumably they're coming from Ontario Airport. Where else would they be coming from? Are they going to be able to plausibly argue that they're coming from when engaging in lowering down? They must be lowering in elevation in order to make themselves audibly perceivable like that, and then increasing in elevation because they rise up as they're crossing over this street. Again, where I am located, it's just like targeting the back window on the car where I'm located. It's just like targeting the right passenger side of the car that I am located next to. It is the same P.O.C. So what I'm saying is I do find that conduct to be highly relevant, and it's 1:56 p.m. and the state is listening to me work on my case against it, so it is also P.O.C. in that it's a means of harassment and their hostility, and basically they're out of ideas of any way to try to stop me from working on my case, so they just engage in the same conduct that is going to result in their prosecution. It's 1:57 p.m. Okay, it's 2:12 p.m. and what I've just taken an image of is the rapid migration of, again, directed sunlight into this car, even to the degree of being able to have light coming through the crack, the small crack in the door, whereby I documented earlier that I had the back passenger side, the driver's side back door cracked open, and I mean cracked open with a small little bottle, and the migration of light in order that light would creep through that small crack in the door. The placement of light is on the left side of the car, and so this would be, it's 2:12 p.m., and so this is something that when I'm referring to they, I mean the state that is actively and consistently engaged in the direction and manipulation of light, which is pursuant to the ongoing search of electronic information in a communication device, pursuant to their invasion of privacy, listening to me at work on my device, seeking to manipulate my devices, steal the information on my devices, etc. That's what's relevant about this migration of light into the car, and it does follow my placing a bottle in order to crack the door for air, and that's what my image captures. And what I got was an image of that, the placement of the light on the car, such that it would be in an opportunistic area where the door is open. This is P.O.C. with regard to their consistent use of light and focusing it on the targeted individual with regard to their ongoing search for information. And you can analogize that with the creepy patterns of the third parties that appear everywhere. It is as though they are molesting the targeted individual with light. It's similar to that. It's very, very, it's creepy. The state's conduct, these third parties that I'm documenting, their use of light, it takes on a stalking character in and of itself. But anyway, with regard to the P.O.C., it's relevant because what I'm showing is, again, this is not a result of the placement of the sun in the sky. This is a result, and it is consistent with what I've documented, the inconsistent direction of light of cars driving past this vehicle. Engage in substantially similar behavior where nothing in my circumstances changed. The car has not moved, and yet it is not occurring consistently because it is not a matter of reflected light. It's not based on it's not from the sun, it is directed light. And this is the same example of that. And it was directed such that light would be directed into the back door that I have cracked open onto the seat, and that is P.O.C. They tried to creep light into every little crevice and area. It is really, it really does take on, with regard to their use of light, it does weaponize the idea of light, and it does take on a whole stalking aspect in and of itself, being stalked by light, being violated by it. It is disturbing, but this is what I'm documenting, and the state would like to, submit, I'm assuming, based on their conduct, that it would be something that's caused by the sun, and it is not. It is within P.O.C. with regard to their consistent direction of light, which I have thoroughly captured inside of Starbucks, and to the degree that there is no argument there. I've captured that which solidifies what is the use of light, the stalking and violative manners in which they use light for their criminal purpose of seeking information and communication devices, confirming my very allegations against the state. This is just another instance of the same. The fact that I have the windows substantially covered but with blankets and the fact that they can direct light on what would be a relevant side of the car because they anticipate my argument that they are directing light inside of the car, it is nonetheless P.O.C. And the fact that light is even creeping through the back door that I have the most minute crack in, this is the state engaging in the same P.O.C. And it is very highly probative of the invasive efforts on the part of the state. It is patently ridiculous, and I cannot wait until I am able to thoroughly expose the ways in which the state is engaged in violating the citizens of the state of California, and using those who are subject to such molestation by the state and don't even know about it. In addition to the sick system that is in place, and these third parties that are the people of the state of California that have been summoned on me, the target individual that is aware and that is documenting it and has every intention to expose it, because it is something that is deplorable, it's disturbing, it's despicable, and it's disgusting. And with regard to each element and the way that they use it, it takes on its own personality. It takes on a stalking tone in and of itself, the way that they use it. And so this is probative with regard to the overall P.O.C. And it is in no way supportive of the same P.O.C. That's what the state is engaged in at 2:19 p.m., directing light onto this car to the degree that it would creep in through the door that I have cracked in the most minute crack, even trying to flick light through there. It is extreme and outrageous. It's 2:20 p.m. on December 15, 2019. And that is a plane. Not a coincidence. That is a plane flying. As soon as I finish narrating and talking about their criminal conduct, seconds after, and I also experienced third parties driving past, and you certainly have all of the elements present with their use of the enhanced tactic of directing light onto this car. So all of the elements are there. In addition to that, the third parties that hide around and stand around, these people are highly disturbed individuals that are operating in this system that I'm documenting inside of the car currently at FERN and G. So that was an airplane following seconds later. That is P.O.C. with regard to my use of a communication device as well. And as soon as I finished recording that last one that ended at 2:20 p.m., I heard audibly footsteps outside of the car. This is the same stalking conduct. Every time I take a picture, a third party appears out of nowhere, which I have been consistently capturing. It is the same conduct while I'm inside of the car, and the windows are substantially covered with blankets. Airplane flies west over the street seconds after I finish narrating the P.O.C. This is not a coincidence. It's P.O.C. It's 2:22 p.m. It's 5:15 p.m. and I am inside of the vehicle remaining at FERN and G Street. And it is notable I am active on my communication devices. What I want to do is draw, again, another similarity of what I document out in public when surrounded. Well, the targeted individual is always surrounded at all times by third parties who are engaged in stalking and surveillance and invasion of privacy. But with regard to being inside of the vehicle at FERN and G, the same activity with light is engaged in. The directing of light and that unnatural character and rapid activity of that light is what I'm observing at 5:15, simultaneous to a third party driving south on FERN adjacent to this vehicle while I am engaged in activity on my communication device. But this is which is P.O.C. But third parties are driving past at all times. It's a systematic search. It's ongoing. It is based on any movement, any change thereof, also any harassment purposes. Just to engage in disrupting sleep, for example, or disrupting concentration while working on the case. In this particular instance, I am engaged in working on my case inside of the car, and the light activity is what is occurring. That is an enhanced light action, which is an element in the ongoing search for electronic information. And again, that's not only is there not headlights being reflected inside of this car, but number two, in any instance, even if you want to try to adapt that as some sort of contention, that light is not going to be active and rapidly moving about in the car. These are my observations, and this is what I have documented prior to this time also. This is the same light activity that is documented inside of Starbucks, for example. So it is 5:17 p.m. and I just wanted to document that, and that again, those are third parties that are driving past, systematically engaging in crossing paths in doing so, and engaged in ongoing invasion of privacy. This is in addition to the fact that the state is continuously listening in and acting in real time pursuant to whatever activity I'm engaged in or any change thereof, in addition to third parties engaging in intentional acts. And with regard to my documentation of third parties, the harassment that is placed into a proper context, and the context being a state-organized system of stalking and harassment and monitoring, that is the relevant context within which third parties' acts are properly assessed. And so with regard to the history that third parties engage in with regard to assault and battery, assault with a deadly weapon, and that is their vehicles, which I have experienced at a plethora of venues, namely on Temple, on when I was staying outside of the, on Sylvan Glen, outside of the public park, the heavy traffic that surfaced there as a result of my presence, and the use of their vehicles, that is a deadly weapon, and each attempt where they were engaged in speeding up and down that street based on my presence, driving very close to my vehicle and doing so, causing it to move about, seeking to instill fear in doing so, and this is within the relevant context of a state-organized system of stalking and harassment, and so that is intentional, that those are intentional acts, and that is the relevant context within which each third party venue and each third party's act is properly assessed. It is not to be assessed within a vacuum. There is a relevant context here, and pursuant to that, I have also been subject to the intentional acts of harmful, offensive contact through the use of third parties in their vehicles, where I do leave the door cracked open. And again, when you're subject to ongoing monitoring, stalking, harassment, and surveillance, pursuant to that, these are intentional acts, and they are placed in that proper context. And so, with regard to the third parties who are acting on the part of the state, they are engaging in battery and assault and battery, assault with a deadly weapon, and these are things that I have been documenting for an extended period of time. Today is another act of that, engaged in keeping the door cracked open for air, and the third party that is also engaged in positioning and doing so. But to note, it is the third vehicle today that engaged in the identical act of driving north on this street, stopping adjacent to this car, and then reversing and parking behind it, or just stopping behind it. It is identical conduct, but in addition to that, this particular third party who I have documented is engaging in the intentional act of causing a harmful, offensive contact in doing so, and that is an intentional act. It is within the proper context of the state-organized system of stalking and harassment, and that is to intentionally cause this vehicle to be filled up with exhaust fumes. That is a harmful, offensive contact, and it is intentional, and it has been repeated. The same assault and battery and harassment has been experienced on Vine and G. They engaged in the exact identical conduct when law enforcement was directing third parties to fill up the street, Vine Avenue, right there, when it was not necessary to do so. But like I said, it's a state-organized system that's in play, and pursuant to that, the targeted individual is surrounded at all times. But it also, what is relevant with regard to the law and with regard to the conduct that third parties are engaged in on behalf of the state, that is the principle, it is placed into the proper context. So this is relevant with regard to Starbucks, for example, and in each venue where the targeted individual has harassing experiences, that need to be placed in a proper context. And so, with regard to this third party that engaged in that's a battery, and it is intentionally inflicted as such, and that's today, December 15, 2019. That is something within the P.O.C, and it is also something that I want to document because this is with regard to the law that needs to be properly analyzed with regard to a state-organized system of stalking and harassment. Nothing is to be analyzed in isolation, in a vacuum, which would be convenient for the state. Everything with regard to, and that is in alignment with the very character of the system, with the character of the act, the crime itself, and the nature of the situation that a targeted individual is in under the circumstances of a state-organized system of stalking and harassment, and being subject to a ceaseless search in their communication devices. And communication devices rule the way of life, especially in America and especially in California. And so this is an ongoing, ceaseless endeavor that the state is engaged in. And as I have also documented, a plethora of ways that they can engage in the same criminal conduct over and over and over again, seamlessly confining itself within the everyday operation of life. And so with regard to this third party that is engaged in positioning and doing so, but also inflicting a battery, which it is properly found to be liable for. And so I have documented that third party, and I want to just document the relevance and why I am documenting that third party, and the relevance and proper analytical context within which that third party's conduct is supposed to be analyzed. It's 5:23 p.m. It's Sunday, December 15th, and I do remain inside of the vehicle at FERN and G. Okay, same P.O.C. with regard to the airplanes, just following up moments after finishing my verbal narration of P.O.C. as I experience it inside of this vehicle at FERN and G, the helicopter, which has been engaged in circling the perimeter of my location over the past hour, by the way, and that is not only P.O.C. for the search, but it is P.O.C. for harassment. I am working on my case. Nonetheless, what I am documenting is the fact of the helicopter engaging and flying over. Again, all of this that I am documenting provides necessary and relevant context for specifically what I am documenting with regard to third-party conduct. Third-party conduct in a specific venue, third-party conduct for what I experience inside of a vehicle where I remain on a street, and third parties that are engaged in the P.O.C. With regard to stalking, surveillance, and the ceaseless search for electronic information and communication device. And that is including inflicting a battery, which is a harmful offensive contact to my person, which is an intentional act where you are placing it within its proper legal context in the same way that you would do at every other venue where I'm documenting the overall P.O.C. and the P.O.C. that is in effect at that specific venue and placing it in the relevant, proper legal context with regard to their conduct and the ways in which they are liable for that conduct. It's 5:25 p.m. Okay, it is 5:29 p.m. And just speaking to the relevance of the images that I've taken, those are the airplanes that maintain a static presence, P.O.C. for the airplanes, but highly relevant to everything else that I am documenting with regard to third-party conduct. They are servants, agents to the state in the state-organized system of stalking and harassment. And primary part of that stalking and harassment is the ongoing monitoring, which is necessary in order for them to engage in the simultaneous conduct of shadowing the conduct, the movement, activity, or change thereof of the targeted individual. This is speaking to driving past, walking past, whatever which way they engage in the crossing of path at the moment that they do when, for example, the targeted individual is engaged in using their communication device. This is P.O.C. And you must be engaging in expansive invasion of privacy in order to do so. What I documented was an image of the airplanes that are flying directly above this vehicle that I remain in as of December 15, 2019, parked at FERN. Cross Street is G Street. And again, with regard to the search, not only are the airplanes remaining present, it is still the ongoing search that occurs with regard to third parties that are surrounding at all times inside of their residences, walking by, riding by, driving past these walls and this vehicle. Certainly is no obstacle for the communication devices that they are using in order to engage in that constitutional violation of personal information that resides in a communication device. And that, again, that is a central aspect of the state organized stalking and harassment. Pursuant to the third-party conduct, I also took an image of the truck that was engaged in positioning and doing so. Is an intentional act to inflict a harmful or offensive contact through the action of driving next to this vehicle that had the door cracked open. And again, when you are subject to 24/7 surveillance and stalking and harassment, this is not something that the third parties are ignorant of. They are very well aware of everything that I am engaged in doing. My documentation represents this, and so third-party conduct needs to be placed in a proper context, and this third party engaged in driving next to adjacent to the side of this vehicle and then backed up, which was the third car of the entire day that did the exact same thing, drove adjacent to this vehicle and backed up and parked behind it, irrespective of that, regardless of where they went, whatever activity they engage in while they do that. They are also engaged in the ceaseless search for electronic information. That is positioning, and all the elements remain present. Not only was this door cracked open, but all the doors don't have to be. I am outside inside of a vehicle that's providing sufficient light, in addition to the sufficient movement of air, the communication device, and the relevant positioning. And that is a third party that engaged in direct conduct, in addition to the fact that it is a battery to intentionally seek to have the fumes from the vehicle entering through the door. That is a harmful offensive contact to my person, and that is not the first time that third parties have engaged in that, and it is pursuant to the ongoing stalking and that's harassment, and that is something that is not to be assessed within a vacuum, again, like I've already said, and that this is the same analysis that is applicable with regard to the entirety of the system and every venue that it exists in, which is universal with regard to that being the state itself that is the principal. Every place that the targeted individual goes and or remains, the system is in place. The ability to engage in the search and violation of privacy is unlimited, and this is primarily because of the means by which the state is engaged in it directly and indirectly through third parties. So people surround everywhere that the third party go, and not only that, everybody has a cell phone. This has become an unfortunate necessary part of society, and probably intentionally so. And in addition to that, with regard to remaining inside of a vehicle parked outside, third parties are able to freely and consistently, unceasingly engage in the search for electronic information while I am inside of this vehicle that is outdoors, and all the elements remain present at all times. In addition to that, there is the documentation that is just substantiating what I am stating with regard to the existence of the system and with regard to the feasibility and the seamless manner in which it is consistently and systematically executed on the part of the targeted individual who, under ordinary circumstances, has no idea that it is occurring. And in addition to that, you have the universal facts, as I call them, and that is the stalking and surveillance of the government via aircraft and the harassment, and you also have the stalking and harassment conduct of law enforcement. So, I mean, that's in the air and on the ground, in addition to the third parties that are working on their behalf. And so this is a system that is relentless, and it is a system that exists everywhere, and with regard to third-party conduct, it is to be properly analyzed within that relevant context. And so it is 5:34 p.m., and I am inside of the car at FERN and G, and while I'm engaged in documenting this, additional third parties engage in positioning, parking in front, using, and of course it's necessary to use lights, driving in the dark to do so. And so this also just speaks to the ease with which the whole system exists. You need light, okay? You need light, but you also need light in order to engage in the ceaseless search for electronic information. And so that's the way it's able to hide itself. And the false assumption is that because it has a proper, legitimate purpose in real life and everyday life, that it somehow discounts the fact that it is used for a criminal purpose, and that is not the case whatsoever. In the same way that making a purchase at some store while you're engaged in the criminal conduct somehow obviates liability, and that is not the case either. That is a false assumption. And so it is 5:35 p.m., and this is just my documenting the targeted individual's experience of this system, outlining the ways in which it operates. This would be under surveillance in the vehicle that you remain in. I'm under surveillance when I'm in public, sitting at Starbucks, for example, and third parties are engaged in surveillance on behalf of the state. That's exactly what they're doing, because they're just sitting in there listening and watching, acting as though they are not. And this is what is so sick about what I'm documenting. And they're all engaged in identical information. And so this is the system that is at work. It's 5:35 p.m. Airplanes continue to engage in the P.O.C. And third parties are continuing to engage in the P.O.C. in the vehicle that I remain in at FERN on December 15, 2019. 5SIX013, Hyundai, blue. Third party seated inside, headlights on, stationary on the side of the car, in relevant position, and this is intended to duplicate what I've already identified as P.O.C. And so an element of... Okay, those images at 6:24, I took the picture of the rear of the vehicle in the parking lot because it was engaged in P.O.C. upon my turning and walking into the parking lot, sitting in the center of the lot where there were no available spaces. He was just standing there, which under the guise of looking for some parking spot, but he was stationary. Upon me pulling out my phone, he begins to back out. This is P.O.C. for third parties seeking to evade being documented. In addition to that, the airplanes were right in a location above me. I took a picture of that as well. With regard to the P.O.C. and the way that it's able to confine itself within everyday society, that is the same thing right there. Being in the parking lot, you're properly in a vehicle. It's dark time, you're properly using your headlights, but those same things that are necessary to driving and looking for a parking spot were also instrumental in engaging in the same search in violation of the targeted individual on the part of the third parties. And so that's the significance of what I just took a picture of, in addition to his reaction to that upon my pulling out my phone, which is no cause for you to run off or start backing up as though you're going somewhere when prior to that you were stationary in that same location. It's 6:25 p.m. It is 6:26 p.m. and as I'm looking for donuts in aisle 7, this is P.O.C. Security guard and customers just holding the door open. That's air movement. That is an element. Every other element is present as well inside of the grocery store. But what I specifically observed was a security guard and a third-party patron engaged in huddling around the door in order to keep it open. And that's for purposes of air movement. In addition to the fact that I am in parallel position to that door, so that again is targeted. That is targeted behavior, targeted action right there, opportunistic for the ongoing search. I just documented the presence of the airplanes outside prior to my entrance, and so this is something that I immediately observed upon turning around after picking up donuts in the aisle. This is just another example of the seamless manner that you are able to engage in the violation of the targeted individual and seeking to steal personal information in a communication device. It's 6:27 p.m. That image I just took at 6:30 is of the additional presence of third parties above not only the store but above the restroom as well, highly relevant with regard to positioning and the elements that remain present, in addition to my placement in aisle 4. Another easy way to engage in the same, you are forcibly in a relevant position to the third parties. In addition to that, all of the other elements are present. You've got the remaining doors that are currently remaining open right now. Third party walking in upon my orally narrating the P.O.C. With regard to the ongoing invasion of privacy. That is real-time reaction. The door was being held open while I'm in operation of my communication device. He immediately walks in, communication device exposed and lit, showing operation of it. In addition to that, you have so that is the element of air movement as well, which is easily satisfied here, operating automatic doors, which I have documented in here, them standing in front of them, keeping them open, which is what I just documented in real time with regard to a third-party patron standing in the entranceway, keeping the door open. It is 6:32 p.m., and what I'm noting about the third parties that are above the area where I just took an image is relevant to the ongoing monitoring. I mean, there's an expansive invasion of privacy, but particularly to Stater Brothers, they are directly positioned above the restroom, and this is highly relevant. It is, I'm in aisle 4 at 6:32 p.m. Inside of the restroom, as I am observing how they have both of the restrooms blocked in order to not use them, there are no out-of-service signs. This is also accompanied with the use of the announcements, picking it up and dialing numbers. That is P.O.C. for Stater Brothers, and monitoring my activity and movement inside of the store. In addition to that, I did capture an image of a third party that anticipated my going toward the restroom like I did. Oh, there is a third party in here that was silent. As I turned the corner and approached him, his phone immediately started ringing. That's operation of the communication device. That is P.O.C. It is 6:34 p.m. and I am inside of the restroom, as you can see. Prior to my beginning to narrate this, the third party was absolutely silent, and so that is remaining within relevant proximity of my location and being quiet as to that. There's no way I would have known, but that would be keeping the third party here in relevant position to mine to engage in that search. So I'm inside of the restroom right now, and that is P.O.C., by the way. It's 6:35 p.m. Okay, so it's 6:42 p.m., and so what I'm documenting is the popularity of this restroom, and that is with everywhere that the targeted individual goes. I'm at a grocery store, and ordinarily a grocery store restroom is not going to be this crowded and this busy, have this much traffic. But what I am noting is the repeated entrance of third parties. It's 6:42 p.m. Okay, the significance of that picture that I just took is that is tracking. That is very similar to the conduct of the third parties inside of their vehicles. Everywhere that the targeted individual walks, because I'm not in a vehicle, so I'm walking on foot everywhere, and you are being tracked by their vehicle. So it is one principle. It is. So I am approaching the parking lot at Starbucks, and as I have documented, it is absolutely black inside of the Starbucks parking lot. And again, this is deliberate conduct. This serves for the concentration of light inside of the establishment. This serves for the focusing of the light on the targeted individual, by the way. This is in violation of how you're supposed to maintain a business, especially where there are invitees on the grounds, and it is in direct contravention of that in ordinary business practices, but in spite of that, this is something that Starbucks customarily engages in, and what I am documenting is the fact that it serves their unlawful purpose, because there is a ceaseless system, in fact, that is present here at Starbucks with regard to the search of electronic information. And as I document this, I am looking at airplanes surrounding the skies above the Starbucks. It is 6:45 p.m. Okay, the images I just took serve the significance of the placement of where I sit inside of the cafe. It's highly relevant with regard to the light activity in here, which is why I took that image at 8:01 p.m. In addition to that, what I want to note is the images of the bathroom doors that are open. That is P.O.C. with regard to movement of air. They have it set up for the capture of electronic information. They've got the bathroom doors, both sides open, lights on. That is in addition to their little headquarters with the blinking lights above the employees. I'm sorry, excuse me. That is the primary setup for the capture of information. As innocuous as it seems on the surface, what I'm actually capturing is the image and what it looks like with regard to the constant movement of air inside of here, and this is relevant to what they are listening to me document about their P.O.C. In addition, what I also captured was the woman in the pink hoodie, and what is notable about her entrance was simultaneous with my getting up out of my seat and raising up my camera, and that is P.O.C. with regard to third parties. They literally wait outside of the door. It's very similar to what the cars do on the street. They wait around the corner. This speaks to their uncanny ability to arrive and drive past right at the moment when I'm engaged in a certain activity or when I'm making movements. I've literally seen them sitting in their cars on the corners of the street. The third-party patrons do the same thing. I've actually captured them waiting outside of the door. That was a source of my documentation a couple days ago, actually. So these images that I just took have several significant points, and it is also highly relevant. They're set up with the bathrooms for movement of air and light. It's also relevant to their main source of capturing information right now, which is the drive-through. They are constantly surrounding the building. The communication devices, that's the focus, is what surrounds the building, and my location on this wall, like I said, is very relevant with regard to what I'm capturing. So the drive-through is right behind me, but even if it was on the other side, they are driving around the perimeter of the location of the targeted individual. That is, all the elements are present for the ongoing search of electronic information on my communication devices. The search is ongoing. What I've captured are the ways in which they are satisfying all of the elements, and that is another manner of doing it. In addition to the blinking lights, the drive-in window, the cars inside of the drive-in, the patrons entering and exiting through any doors, it satisfies the movement of air. In addition to any door that I cannot see actually behind the employee area, which I've been standing on the side of the door before, and they've opened up that back door for no reason, just to look at me and close it. Anyway, it's 8:05 p.m. and just going over the relevance of what I'm capturing. This is Starbucks, 706 West Holt. That is the presence of Ontario PD directly across from me at the El Pollo Loco in relevant position. This speaks to the ongoing stalking and remaining in proximity of my location, just outside of the building, where P.O.C. is fully capable of being engaged in with regard to the search, with regard to the monitoring, and with regard specifically to the law enforcement's issue with stalking and surveillance. It is 8:26 p.m. and as I sit here at this table in relevant position to the Ontario Police officer's location at the window at the drive-thru at the El Pollo Loco, which is directly across the street. It's 8:27 p.m. inside of the criminal establishment of Starbucks. The last two images that I just captured at 8:34, 8:35, I am at San Antonio and B as in Boy Street, and that is the airplanes that are stationary in the sky. Well, actually, they're not stationary. They are quietly flying above. And that one that I just captured at 8:35, it is actively flying in step with me, remaining in relevant position. That's what that's called. This is the stalking all the way back to the car. And that I'm actively looking at it, and it is literally flying in line with me as I walk. And in addition to that plane, I literally walked just 20 feet, and it's staying right in front of me. It's directly in front of me as I stand in front of Coin Laundry on San Antonio. So it is literally stopped in front of me where I'm stopped right now, where I'm narrating. It's 8:35 p.m. and I'm leaving Starbucks, and this is after I just captured Ontario PD in relevant positions, but diagonally in line with my position at the table inside of the Starbucks. And in addition to that, what I captured were the airplanes that were present over the intersection of San Antonio and HOLT, where I was leaving. So this is just to capture how the airplanes are stalking me, following me on the way back to the car. It's 8:36 p.m. 1, 2, 3, 4, and police sirens. This is supposed to be an implied threat, and this is an airplane flying very, very low over this residential neighborhood. Very low. And that was a simultaneous chorus of police sirens circling the perimeter, airplanes that are following me en route back to the car, sirens that are in the midst of in conformity to P.O.C, and the airplanes that are also in relevant position. Every single third party that's driving past is engaged in P.O.C at this moment as well. This is the system that I'm documenting, and this is also the aggression that the targeted individual is approached with, because I have the audacity and the ability to convict them, because that's what I'm doing. And what that was a deliberate intention to try to threaten me. That was the simultaneous conduct of police sirens, of the airplanes flying low, the airplanes are actively flying over, and that was concerted action. Planes flying over, airplanes roaring, sirens sounding. That's what that's supposed to be. And that is not the first time that they've engaged in what I have called an ambush. This is very relevant to the entity that I'm documenting. They are very highly upset. I just got through letting them know that they are criminals who have already been caught. I've mentioned directly, because they are invading my privacy and I'm aware of it, that I have 13 videos of the helicopter flying over me, following me, stalking me from the library back to my car that they stole through law enforcement on October 2nd. I just got through taking a picture of Ontario PD engaged in the P.O.C again, stalking and remaining in proximity of my location while I was inside of the Starbucks, while I got up and took a picture of that, and I also let them know, because they are listening to me document them, and they are very highly hostile and aggressive. So the fact that they just engage in that conduct, that's a direct result of what they are listening to me document about them, and they are highly aggressive and hostile toward it. I am going to continue to document it, but I also want to note this, because this is not the first time that they've tried to engage in that. That is very relevant with regard to the law, with regard to the state's intent to create a threat and cause fear into the targeted individual. This is very relevant with regard to the state stalking system that I'm documenting, and the fact that it actually does exist. This is why I'm being approached with such aggression and hostility. And also with regard to what I've just documented moments ago at 8:35 about the plane that is remaining in line with me, that same plane is all the way down here at Flora in San Antonio. The same one that was directly in front of me when I was at B as in Boy Street in San Antonio. This is the stalking conduct by the aircraft. I will take a picture right now. 8:43 p.m., that's exactly the image that I captured, that same airplane that I was narrating as being right in front of me, engaging in aggressive conduct, as in literally tracing my steps as I walk on, as I was at B Street. This same plane is now doing exactly what it did as I was documenting. It started flying over. It engaged in the same conduct moments later when they engaged in the ambush that I just got in real time. And now it's flying over again. But these planes don't go anywhere. They continue to follow. This is the stalking and the following and the surveillance. This is highly relevant in what I'm documenting. It is very relevant with regard to the substance of my case, and it's very relevant with regard to the existence of the state-organized stalking and harassment that I am actively documenting, and they are very hostile and angry toward it. It speaks to the fact that it does exist. There is no other reason why I'll be faced with this, in addition to what the courts are engaged in as well. It is 8:45 p.m., and this is evidence that is insurmountable. It is insurmountable. I am surrounded by airplanes. It's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. In addition to the airplanes that were engaging and flying over in concert with the sound of the sirens. It's not a coincidence. After I took a picture of Ontario PD engaged in the P.O.C. again with regard to stalking, the same ones that stole my car, had no license or VIN on it, this is not a coincidence. This is the targeted individual identifying the state as the criminals that they are, and engage in highly threatening conduct as a result, very hostile as a result. There's a reason for that. It's 8:46 p.m. and I am at Flora and F Street, I believe, on my way back to the vehicle. Like I said, true to their P.O.C, they sit around listening to me talk about what they're engaged in, and then they engage in the very same conduct over and over again. I'm at Flora and Beverly. That's where I'm at, walking back to the car, and I am surrounded by airplanes in the sky that are listening to me as I document. And then once I stop, do a particular recording, and then they start is that they lose. That's what's relevant. What's relevant right now is the fact that they're engaged in following me and stalking me. This is the same P.O.C that I have already submitted to the courts, and as of December 15th, they are still actively engaged in it, and aggressively so. Aggressively so. The same entity that I'm documenting as being engaged in criminal conduct is demonstrating a show of hostility and aggression through the what I documented in real time. It does not get any more foolish than that. They actually gave... This is very relevant, though. This is everything that I have been documenting. I cannot believe that, number one, the Ontario police did that, and I got it. It's not funny. This is real life, though, and this is a targeted individual that's aware. The only reason why I'm being met with this aggression is because I'm aware and I'm challenging it. Ordinarily, like I have shown through the evidence, through the elements that exist, you would have no idea that this is going on. No idea. The only way that the state will be engaged in such foolish conduct is because it knows that there is no argument that it has, especially for the stalking and surveillance. There is nothing that they could say. So they're literally listening and watching me document their criminal conduct, and because of that, all they can do is engage in fully incriminating actions that in no way helps them, and there is no argument for it. And I'm literally watching them follow me on the way back to the car. This is the government in aircraft, right? I am not making it up. I have the evidence, and they're continuing to do it as of December 15th. And it is it is criminal, but it's also highly immature. This is a government that's engaging in what? Throwing stuff at a car like a second grader because they're mad because I'm documenting them, and they're engaging in criminal conduct. These are serious allegations, and that's what they resort to. That's the type of conduct that they resort to. And so they listen to me document, and then once I stop documenting, then they start flying over again in loud, conspicuous manner. It's something that it is accurately described as pathetic, but nonetheless, it's highly criminal, and that's what's mostly relevant. But I want this to be known about what I was documenting, about the character and the nature of the conduct and the government that is engaged in this pathetic conduct, this behavior that I have been exposed to, that I've had the opportunity to sit around and... It's 8:58 p.m. and I'm at FERN and G, and I just captured the plane again within eyeshot, actually in line with my physical position, walking down the street just as they were, where I was on Santonio and B Street, B as in boy, and where I was at Flora and San Antonio, and my entire walk down Flora over to Vine. And so again, that is the stalking. I'm looking at the airplanes. They serially fly over this car anyway, but this is just narrating how they're engaged in the blatant stalking conduct, following me back to this car, and in addition to that, providing the chorus of sirens and planes flying over. And this is with their impending prosecution. All the evidence that they listened to me that I've accumulated over the year with regard to their criminal conduct, and that was nothing more than an act of hostility in conformity to that which I have documented before tonight. It's 8:59 p.m. Okay, I just took a plethora of photos. I am capturing the over 9 to 10 planes that I see, and as of right now I see another one that's flying quite rapidly over me. I believe that is the helicopter flying higher up than usual. And this is while I started to record after I just took a bunch of pictures of the airplanes that are surrounding the street that I'm standing on right now. This aircraft is blinking white lights, and it had a red light on it, and it slowed down. They are listening to me, so they engage in real-time reaction. That's what I've termed it: real-time conduct, real-time reaction. This street is surrounded by aircrafts, and that's what my pictures reflect. They are covering the sky, remaining present, and also what is also relevant, the background noise, much like when I'm in Starbucks, much like when I'm inside the car, that sound of the train, that is P.O.C. For the same conduct with regard to shadowing my movements, with regard to trying to block out when I'm speaking about the P.O.C. When I am saying that it is a system, it is expansive. It is an expansive system, and that train I experienced up close when I was sleeping on the benches outside of the museum up at HOLT and Euclid, where that train was engaged in creating the same nonverbal, well, not even nonverbal, it was actually both, nonverbal and harassment, trying to wake me up. The train sat there stationary, and that's not a train that passengers get on, and it's also not a train where it sits there stationary all night long, but that's what it did on the nights where I was sleeping there. Anyway, I just want to give relevance to that noise in the background. And the extensiveness of the system that's in place. The fact that I was ambushed again when I was walking on San Antonio and Flora with the chorus of sirens and the aircrafts that were hovering above the street and the airplanes that were circling around. That was a show of force, a show of aggression, and that is not the first time that they've engaged in that conduct. And it was immediately following my documentation of Ontario police engaging in stalking conduct. Again, I am stressing this because it is highly relevant with regard to the photos that I just took again of the planes that are surrounding me on this street at FERN and G Street, where I remain inside of this vehicle. These are all the dots. While these third parties engage in crossing paths, it's very relevant what is going on. This is the system that is in place. And this is the way that it operates, and this is the government that reacts to the one who is aware of what's going on and is challenging it in court. That's why I met with that, because I am identifying the system that's in place. That's why. And I am actually spelling out the elements that are at work that can operate in any place where the targeted individual is at, and at all times, in the ways in which the targeted individual is violated in unfathomable manners. And so each third party that is driving past, walking past, riding past, they're engaging in P.O.C. and intentionally so, and they are not engaged in any ignorant conduct. There are no exceptions and there are no exclusions, and the fact that I'm being stalked by aircrafts is illustrative of that. It is 9:10 p.m. and I'm at FERN and G Street. Two seconds later, that's the sound of the helicopter. Outside of FERN and G. I have had this helicopter in more than just Ontario. This is a helicopter that is approaching, flying west while I stand here at the corner at FERN and G. This is harassment. This is them listening to me document their P.O.C. This is in reaction to what they just listened to me document. He's flying directly over me. And this is in conformity to specifically the helicopter that has engaged in directly harassing me, flying over me when I was in my vehicle, following me on the night when they stole my vehicle. I have 13 videos showing that, how the helicopter followed me from Ontario Library all the way back to my car that was at Vine and G. Actually followed me all the way back to Woodside Apartments, where the third party apartment that I went to, the helicopter went right there and circled over that apartment while that third party held their cell phone in the middle of their chest, telling me that they cannot help me. There is symbolic hostility in that act right now that helicopter just engaged in. And so that is, again, the same P.O.C. The airplanes are surrounding. While I'm sitting here talking on this phone, they are surrounding. They're all around. I'm looking in the sky, and these third parties are engaged in P.O.C. This is the system right here. All the elements are present, every single last one of them. And in addition to that, you don't have to be driving past, because the people inside of the residence at 603 and every other residence who are able to listen to every word and every move that the targeted individual makes, which speaks to the nonverbal conduct that I have been able to document and identify as a pattern. They're engaged in P.O.C. as well. The fact that the helicopter just got through flying over, that is symbolic hostility. That is a statement of not only a threat, but it is relevant to what I documented about their conduct, what I was openly speaking about on my way back from the Starbucks. And so the fact that they're engaged in the same P.O.C. is not a coincidence again, and the fact that it starts flying over 2 seconds after I got through narrating the P.O.C. again, there's an absence of coincidence. This is an entity that has no more tools, that there are no more secrets, and it is out. So with regard to the third parties that conduct themselves as though they're normal, they are highly abnormal. They are not normal whatsoever. They are participants in concerted actors with regard to this state that's involved in stalking via aircraft. And I'm saying this while I'm looking up in the sky, and I'm looking at these aircrafts surrounding me above. And this is nothing compared to what I was approached with on December 19th, 2018. They were up close and personal. I looked up and they surrounded above the sky just like I described in my court documents. And they have not stopped following me ever since. And since I have documented a thorough history of their conduct, they continue to engage in that which is reasonably construed as aggressive, threatening behavior. Because that's exactly what it is. And this third party that was getting in the car did not get in the car and is engaged in crossing paths. So he gets on the sidewalk and he's walking straight. Not that he has to. It's just an open statement like the helicopter flying over. It's openly incriminating, but they're engaging in it because I am documenting them, and so their only response is to continue to engage in that which is incriminating, that which I've identified as P.O.C. Based on all the elements that are present. And so it is 9:14 p.m. and that is another airplane that's flying loudly, but they're not stopping in their presence. They're circling around. They're staying around the street. And so this is another statement. This is good to get because this is the state that is going to be prosecuted for criminal conduct. Now, mind you, I have been sitting here narrating and the airplane becomes audible right here over the street. You don't hear it anywhere prior to its arrival over the street. In addition to that, they engaged in that while I'm out and documenting the P.O.C. and conspicuously did it while there's a third party in the car. As though that's some contradiction of P.O.C. It actually is not. That is the P.O.C. What they are doing is mocking the fact that I've identified it as such. That's it. So anyway, like I said, with regard to the airplane, what you have is wherever it's coming from, because it's not coming from the airport. These are planes that remain present, that continue to circle and remain over the targeted individual's location. Every person, every third party that is out here is representing the servants, the agents that are acting on behalf of this same stalking and surveilling entity that I'm documenting. And it is highly upset by the fact that I am doing so. And so what they are engaged in, much like what I encountered walking to the Starbucks, somebody sitting in their car engaged in P.O.C. and blatantly doing so, and it is no contradiction. All of the elements are present, and we're engaged in by virtue of their relevant positioning, being outside, headlights on the car, and engaged in holding up their communication device, even though they don't even have to hold up their communication device. Those are all of the elements, and that's what they were openly engaged in, and this is a state that is listening to me documented. And so what I'm standing out here now is the helicopter flying over, and then an airplane that comes out of the blue. You don't hear it prior to coming up the FERN, but you hear it come down when you hear it fly directly over the street, and that is P.O.C. for the airplanes. It defies common sense. They're engaged in stalking and flying loudly over this street for a purpose, and they engage in that direct conduct right now with regard to walking out, getting in their car, and then the third party crossing path. I've identified all of this as the P.O.C., and it is the P.O.C., and so it is no contradiction. What it is the state trying to maybe seeking to mock that which I've identified. It really doesn't matter. The elements are present. present. The elements have been identified in several different venues as well, and the fact that they are elements to the ongoing search, and the fact that they are parts of everyday life. Everybody needs lights, everybody needs air, for example, and people walk and drive in their cars all the time, and people certainly are on their phones. And with regard to that, they are nonetheless the same elements that are present with regard to attacking the targeted individual. And the fact that the added facts that are insurmountable is the fact that I'm being stalked and have been documenting that by police specifically since November 2018. Their aggression, their obsession, their remaining in my proximity is a result of my identification of the system, the stalking by the aircraft. My challenging this and exposing it in court is a result of the existence, my exposure of the existence of the same stalking system. So the state that is engaged in the hostility that I documented on the way from Starbucks is again demonstrative of the same system that I am documenting and exposing, and they are hostile to it. There is no way to contradict it. All they can do is try to engage in that which is what's similar to what I've identified. It is P.O.C. Every single last one of them just engaged in P.O.C. while I'm outside on the phone. It is nonetheless present. It is nonetheless real. And the government continues to demonstrate its hostility and anger toward the fact that I am exposing them as perverted criminals, because that's exactly what they are. They are perverted criminals, and each and every last one of these people are engaged in concerted action with them. I could not make this up. The fact that airplanes are stalking me, I have the evidence for it in real time. In real time. So the fact that that is occurring, why would they be engaged in such conduct if I'm a loony bug and if I'm just making it all up? Okay? Why would I be denied that which I am clearly entitled to in a court of law if I'm just making it up? Let the crazy person have their day in court then, if that's the case. But that's not what happened, and that's not what's happening. And that's not why law enforcement is so concerned about Erica Lorraine Spencer, and that's not why these aircrafts are remaining present everywhere that I go, flying above me and stalking right now as I speak. That's not why. Okay? There's hostility because I have identified it, and I continue to expose it. And it cannot be obviated. It can't. It doesn't matter. The fact that you have a whole bunch of people doing the same thing, it is no less criminal. It is no less a violation of constitutional rights. And it's certainly not going to stop being identified as the pattern of behavior that it is, because I've watched the state engaged in it over and over and over again for an extended period of time, and so this is what I am met with as a result. And all it does is add merit to my case. That's all it does, because it in no way contradicts it. It's 9:19 p.m. And like I said, as I stand out here, each and every single last one engaged in P.O.C. The third parties that walked to that car, that was crossing paths. And with regard to starting the car, what? This is crossing paths as well. This is the same P.O.C. And in addition to that, the airplanes are flying over. Why didn't I email you? I went to your house. You weren't there. Like 10 minutes ago. What a coincidence that you're here now.
I just got back from my comedy show.
I know.
But you should
Real
have
funny.
earlier.
Why? Okay. This is P.O.C. by the way, and it's not a coincidence that she shows up while I'm in the midst of documenting. She is engaged in crossing paths, and all of the elements remain present. Like I said, it is a universal system, and there is a history of documentation of the P.O.C. on the part of this particular third party. And while I continue to document, she remains in relevant position, and the airplanes are flying over. I just want to note, airplanes flying over and the arrival of this particular third party, TRACEE Banks, not a coincidence. Again, just like every other third party that's engaged in crossing paths, not a coincidence. So it is 9:21 p.m. and I remain standing outside documenting the ongoing stalking and surveillance of the airplanes and the active P.O.C. That is in motion. And with regard to the airplane's aggression, as I walk from as I go from the Starbucks down to San Antonio and Flora, where I documented the real-time aggression. There are third parties creeping down the side alleys. This is crossing paths. Like I said, there is no coincidence with regard to their engaging in the ongoing search for electronic information and communication device. It is the same principle at work, different third parties, different face, same system, and that is specific to the definition. You have a system in place. It's not individualized to any particular individual. The individual that is focused on is the targeted individual, but with regard to the system that is in place, you have a system that is targeting one person, and so their rights are being violated by the system itself and the people that are engaged in concerted action in regard to indirecting that violation to one individual. So you're talking about something that is unimaginable with regard to the level of violation, and ignorantly so. They have no idea that it's going on ordinarily because of the basic elements that I have outlined that are present with regard to air, light, being in relevant position. A lot of that is necessary. You got to get in line when you go into a grocery store. That is relevant positioning with regard to the ongoing search for electronic information. It provides the very forum by natural occurrence. It occurs. So that is no less an element in the ongoing search. And what I am speaking to right now is the aggression that I am met with, the futile acts by this criminal entity that, number one, is continuously displaying their aggression, which is relevant to what I am claiming in court, number one. And number two, the fact that they are engaged in the very acts that they're engaged in with the stalking and harassment and surveillance, and that which is also a matter of court documents at this point. And so the fact that those are coinciding facts, that's not to be neglected. It is highly relevant to the existence of this system, and the fact that I am met with such aggression is very relevant with regard to what I'm exposing. There's a reason why they're mad. There's a reason why they're following me, and there's a reason why they cannot get over or move away from wherever Erica is located. These airplanes are flying and remaining over, engaging in conduct that is not logical. Why are airplanes only audible when they're flying over FERN? Where are they migrating from? Ontario Airport, and then rising up in elevation and then lowering down when they come back, which they have to fly. They have to fly north from the Ontario Airport, because G Street way over here is to the right of where the Ontario Airport is. So they're flying a distance over this way, lowering in elevation, and then becoming audible right over here at FERN. And whereas before it was over at Vine where I was located. Okay, so this is not a coincidence. It's stupidity. It's a criminal act, and the state is highly pissed off that I am documenting them. It defies common sense. And like their actions defy common sense. Nothing that they engaged in today is helpful in the state's case whatsoever. What it is illustrative of is a highly criminal entity that is very hostile toward my case against it. Nothing that they're doing, nothing that they have the third parties do on their behalf is helpful with regard to their case. It does not in any way negate from the presence of the system or the presence of each element that is with regard to the ongoing search for electronic information and a communication device. They're very upset that I've identified it as such, and that I will be claiming that, and that I will be successful in that endeavor, because there is no argument for stalking a citizen via aircraft. There is no argument for engaging in ongoing stalking and harassment by law enforcement. And there is a whole history with regard to the police in particular. So I am stressing this point because it is very relevant to the pathetic and desperate acts that the state is engaged in, but it is going to be highly relevant with regard to what I assert against the state and what is the proper and just result based on everything, the totality of everything that I've documented. And so it's 9:26 p.m., and so I was met with a barrage of sirens, with a barrage of airplanes flying directly over, and the continuous crossing of paths by third parties that are engaged in concerted action of stalking and surveillance. And in addition to that, you have the meaningless conduct of third parties that walk to their car, then walk back on the sidewalk just to engage in what is, I guess, supposed to be some sort of mockery, but it's not a mockery. It is identification of real criminal conduct, and the state knows that. That's why it is so aggressive, and that's why it's so angry, and that's why it's so focused on me. And in addition to that, I am met here at the intersection by airplanes that are swarming over this intersection. As I look at them, I'm standing in front of the nearest residence of 603 on FERN, and I'm looking at the airplanes that are remaining present over here remaining. I'm looking at them right now. And this is the same conduct that I documented at B Street, B as in boy, in San Antonio. They did not stop. This is the same conduct I have over a series of months, over a year now, in writing, in audio, in video, and in pictures. So the fact that they are engaged in such stalking and extreme conduct does not in any way contradict the fact that I have identified the totality of the crimes that they're engaged in, and they are very angry about that. So the fact that that is the case, that's not in any way a contradiction to what I'm documenting. What their even migration over here is different from where I was in my car at Vine and G. Before at Vine and G, they were up more. So this is what I'm saying. Just like with regard to when I was doing my laundry inside of Woodside, I have example after example after example of their migrating to where I am. So under the law, that is stalking and following and surveillance. That's what that is. And what they are engaged in necessarily, it requires them to be engaged in invasion of privacy. And it is an expansive invasion of privacy that third parties are actively engaged in with them in order to keep up the ongoing monitoring. And pursuant to this system, again, the focus is to stalk and harass and to monitor the electronic devices stealing personal information. And once that once that targeted individual becomes aware, then they're met with unprecedented levels of aggression and hostility, which is designed to have that person wiped out and written out of society as crazy. But that will not be the case here because of the level of evidence that I have against this criminal entity. That's not going to be the case with Erica Lorraine Spencer. And I will bring out every ounce of evidence that I have against them, including tonight. They're up-to-date, present acts of hostility and aggression that I have as of December 15th, and this is highly relevant with regard to where we are in court proceedings. And this is also highly relevant with regard to the inaction on the part of the court, which I have stated before, but this is relevant because the same entity that against whom I have a court case against is the same entity that is listening to me and seeking to construe what I have against it. There is no argument, though, for the stalking. There is nothing that they can say with regard to the stalking of the government, of a citizen by the government. There is nothing. There is absolutely nothing that you can say in response to that, in defense of it. There is no defense for it. And there is not enough coincidence ever. I have over a year of it, over a year, by stalking on the ground via law enforcement and stalking by aircraft combined. There is no defense for it. In addition to the stalking conduct, I have specific acts of harassment for a prolonged amount of time by the police, by San Antonio Regional Hospital, by third parties, private parties engaged in concerted action, which is put into a proper context with regard to the existence of this state stalking system. There is no argument there. There is none. Not enough coincidence ever. The aggression and hostility that I'm met with is based on the fact that I am going to be prosecuting this state, and everything that they're doing is going to be relevant to that prosecution and relevant to what is a just result as a just result based on their actions to date as of December 15th. It is 9:30 p.m. and I am remaining at FERN in G, where at the beginning of my narrating here started with the helicopter, and then the barrage of third parties that came and got in their car, engaging in cross paths, engaging in everything that I have identified as P.O.C, and it is P.O.C, as a means to respond to, this is a state, the same response by engaging in the same criminal conduct, flying over and stalking. That's their response to my documentation of their criminal conduct, just continuing to engage in the criminal conduct. That's the state's response, and so that's what I was met with. Helicopters flying over, third parties engaging in crossing paths, and driving their cars up feet on the curb for no damn reason. Just engaging in the same conduct because there is no response. There is nothing else that they can say or do. I am spelling this out because it is important to note what the targeted individual is faced with. And it is important to note what needs to be done as far as the law is concerned based on the fact that the state is engaged in such egregious conduct. It is unfathomable. It is unfathomable. And the fact that I am met with this and I am able to document it is something that needs to be submitted to a court of law, which is exactly what I will be doing. And it speaks to that which must be a result. A just result in answering